My name is Arthur Frank Burns, and I am the 10th Chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Do you think you're well suited to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve?
Well, given my extensive background in economics and public service, I believe that I am very well suited to be the Chairman of the Federal Reserve. I have a PhD in economics from Columbia University, where I also received the John Bates Clark Endowment Chair.
Very well. And how would you say are your relations with Mr. Richard Nixon?
My relations with Mr. Nixon are professional, and we collaborate closely to formulate policies that promote economic stability and growth for our nation.
And what are some of these policies that you're looking forward to developing in 1971 with a special interest in combating inflation?
So I am advocating for a blend of monetary policies. These include monetary restraint, tightening credit, supporting a gold standard, and the promotion of economic stability.
Right. And would you say, with the context of the nearing elections, do your policies stand to benefit Mr. Nixon rather than the American folk?
My policies stand to benefit the American public. While collaboration with Mr. Nixon is crucial, my ultimate aim and my job is to serve the broader interest of the nation.
While Mr. Burns emphasized that his policies sought to benefit the American public, many believe that his actions were a clear sign of merging political and economic interests. His actions led to disastrous outcomes, with inflation reaching sky-high limits. This led to a decline in the trust of the efficiency and the work of the Federal Reserve itself, and it still holds to be one of the major cautionary tales for the independent working of the Federal Reserve. Eventually, during President Jimmy Carter's term, the position of the chairman fell into the lap of Mr. Paul Volcker after Mr. G.W. Miller took over the position as the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury.
I am Paul Volcker, the 12th President of the Federal Reserve.
What is your opinion on a predecessor, Mr. G.W. Miller?
Miller was very unfit for the job. Although he was an excellent businessman, investment banker even, he was incredibly unfit to run the Federal Reserve. He was appointed by President Carter as a ploy for his presidency.
What do you think of Mr. Burns and his policy?
Well, it's funny you ask that. I believe it's a stretch to even call them his policies. It's very clear that President Nixon was pressuring him into implementing expansionary monetary policy. This was especially ridiculous considering we were going through a time of such high inflation.
Well, you feel so strongly about Mr. Burns. How are you going to be different?
Well, as the appointed Federal Reserve President, I will do what my job entails. I will put the United States first. Unlike my predecessor, I'm not here as a ploy for the president. I'm here to do my job. I'm here to help fix the United States economy, and my number one concern right now is fixing the massive inflation rates that we have right now. In order to combat the increasing inflation rates, I will be raising the interest rates, and that is my best option as the Federal Reserve President.
How are you going to sell the idea of a recession to Congress?
As the President of the Federal Reserve, it is my number one concern, and the number one concern of the Federal Reserve, to lower the increasing inflation rates in the United States right now. In order to do this, I will be presenting to Congress our best wishes, and the best wishes for all the United States citizens. In order to lower the inflation rates, we will need to reverse the policies implemented by my predecessors of the expansionary monetary policy, and we will need to implement a restricted monetary policy. In order to do this, we will be setting ourselves back very slightly. We will be putting ourselves into a slight recession in order to back the US dollar and increase the value, as well as we will be lowering the inflation rates by an extraordinary amount. This is very necessary for the United States government and for the United States citizens.
Even though it was a tough decision at the time, Mr. Walker's policy led to decreasing rates of inflation and eventually normalized the U.S. economy. Mr. Walker is still hailed as one of the greatest chairmen of the Federal Reserve and as the man who turned the U.S. economy around. In class, Professor Nekeba remarked that to become a good Fed chair, you had to overcome an almost Herculean feat. But I think that extends beyond the Federal Reserve and even beyond economics. In life, to become something great, we must overcome the tasks that we deem impossible. And this is one of the most remarkable lessons from Econ 101.
Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Oh, it's my pleasure.